Refreshing. It burns! Justice, courage! Armored up.
Hello guys and welcome to our channel. This is Baby Roll and it's finally time to talk about my roaming build for Druid. Think of it as an update to my main build for Druid and my hybrid build in one video. So in the past few days I have tested everything, every theory in my mind, changed drones, gears, pets, specific rotations, many ideas, and every time I think I finally found it, it is another problem. And all of that because of a very bad design in the current Druid. So let me explain. In 27th batch when it came, Rework have removed or reworked the trait about Ancient Seed. This one changed to the trait Eclipse. We are no longer having Ancient Seed in the build, and also other traits got reworked like Blood Moon from Primal Echoes. So the idea was, we have in this trait, anytime we hit an enemy that under control or basically disabled, it has to be stunned, dazed, floated, launched, anything. completely incapable of using skill, a state of disable, will trigger a skill that complete copy of entangle. So it will both immobilize and bleed, and it is unblockable. You could use this on multiple targets at the same time if you hit them all, if they are all disabled and you hit them all at the same time. And a standard procedure for this was to cast skill 3 Lunar Impact, and the first hit from Natural Conversion will trigger Ancient Seed on everyone. So what did we lose losing Ancient Seed? For a start, we were concerned about two main things, our damage and our survivability. So Ancient Seed, like we said, was on a 10-second cooldown, and it would mimic this skill, so it was about 7k of bleed each 10 seconds you able to apply it. And it will keep ramping up its damage on its own, so you can be auto-attacking or doing other things, which means the real damage every 10 seconds was much higher than this. The second idea is because of it, we were able to control our position, enemy's position, which means if the enemy is at this tree, for example, I can stun them with an arrow of my short bow 5, and with a single auto attack they are rooted. They have to cleanse or kill the roots or do whatever they do, give themselves resistance in order to catch to me. I am very far and I can survive them. You can do this to multiple enemies if they're chasing you. For example, you can use Glyph of Equality and a simple trigger of the sigil of Geomancy in my short bow, for example, just by entering CC avatar will give root to everyone here. Or simply casting Lunar Impact, using the first attack and start leaving, and everyone who's chasing you is rooted. They would have to cleanse the root, avoid it completely, or break it, or burn cooldowns in order to catch up, and eventually they will not be able to catch up, or most case scenarios. That doesn't mean Root did not have its downside. It was a big part of our damage and control, and some builds, for example, was able to avoid it for a very long time through resistance or an easy removal for immobilize in general, like Warrior was on top of this build styles. Some safe builds like Daredevil, they can simply dodge out of it, stuff like that. So it had its downside, but it was a relaxing style. It will eventually land. You will land the CC and it will land. That's why top players, if they couldn't avoid it completely, like they have a time when they have stability, or they play Warrior, for example, so they can avoid the immobilize easily, they would let it land, will let you actually hit it, and then cleanse it, burn a cleanse, and there is 10 seconds when the Druid can't hold them down and can't do anything. So that was the idea of survivability, and for damage, like we said already, it had a lot of damage. Did we lose anything else? For a start, we used to use Primal Echoes as a condition cleanse, making Celestial Avatar as a way of survivability. Right now, it's not possible to play Druid without Blood Moon. It is the main source of damage, not actually Eclipse. We will talk about the problem with Eclipse in a second. So you would have to go with Blood Moon, and Blood Moon replaced Primal Echoes. Primal Echoes used to lower the cooldown of staff skills, so you can use them more and faster, and do the daze on staff switch and on Celestial Avatar. So a simple switch to staff can daze everyone around you, and you can simply start kiting, and you can make it work with actually triggering Ancient Seed. So if you use Primal Echoes and switch to staff, everyone is dazed, you do use Glyph of Equality, and all those people dazed get Ancient Seeded and you leave. Even if you combine it with a sigil like Hydromancy or Geomancy, the simple switch itself was able to daze people and immobilize them with the root, and you can start kiting. So whether you take Druidic Clarity or Primal Echoes, you would have higher survivability than you do now when you have a single daze on entering Celestial Avatar only, with no ability to keep people stuck to the ground like you used to have roots. That's a survivability problem, and we will get back to it in a second. But let's talk about damage. So Blood Moon basically will give you a 1 stack of equal to Sharpened Stone, it's basically the same amount of bleed, on every time you apply a disable, daze, stun or whatever, or an immobilize. It have no internal cooldown. Those 8-second cooldown are for the daze on entering CC Avatar only. So skill 5 on Shorebow will do it, Glyph of Equality will do it. The only bit that trigger it is Jacaranda through her own roots. And since the roots start the immobilize after the cast, they will give you 4 stacks of immobilize, triggering this effect 4 times. The black hole effect that happen in the final balls of Natural Conversion, skill 5 on Celestial Avatar, will trigger also the immobilize after the appearance of the black hole, which means it's 4 times. The roots will start the immobilize on the initial cast, so it's 6 stacks, not 5. That's something to pay attention to. Other than that, there is an inconsistency because other bits will not apply it. Why not, for example, I would have Iboga applying it on the ball and then on the immobilize. That would be nice, adding a little bit to my damage, but no, only Jacaranda for some reason do it. And as you see, the cooldown for such skills are incredibly high. Like to have one stack of bleed like this, you can get it from Glyph Equality on a 30-second. Lunar Impact was probably the best thing you could bump a little bit damage off, and you will have it every time, either once or twice in every rotation in Celestial Avatar, because Celestial Avatar itself would have 10-second cooldown. That's if you use it every time of cooldown. So in a 10-second you would have 2 stacks of bleed from it. A skill like Entangle became very useful since it will put 6 stacks alone from Blood Moon, but that if you make sure the enemy can't break out of it. Let's talk about the dumb design for Druid right now, or the bad one. I think it was rushed, or Arianet didn't think of it, or I don't know what happened. But since the release of Heart of Thoron, since the release of Druid, it used to have in this last line either boons or healing. It's either a support build, or the only rooming or style of fighting you'd have was Ancient Seed, which means you use Lunar Impact to diss everyone around you, and the single first attack of Natural Conversion will land the root, so people can't move and they will eat the whole damage unless they cleanse or find a way to fight back. So they will eat every balls and the final damage and get stuck into the black hole, which is the final effect of the skill. Right now we do not have the roots, and this skill still works exactly the same. It root us in place, we cannot move, it have 2.5 seconds cast time, so the best defense around it is to simply move away from it. It's as easy as that. You start casting it to however you try, and people can just walk away and will never eat the black hole, which means they will not eat the final balls of damage, the final burning, the big one, and will not get the black hole effect to eat 4 stacks of Blood Moon. So what the amount of damage you're left with? A little bit extra hit from there, hit from here, on immobilize, daze, stuff like that to trigger a little bit of bleed more. 2 stacks inside the Celestial Avatar from Lunar Impact, a very small amount of poison from this, your damage is very much low. Because in a real fight, the only way to land this skill is people get confused around you. Either they don't know how to defend themselves against it, either they burned a lot of cleanses already for some reason, they estimated the dodge wrong, and they ended up taking it. But in a solo fight against multiple players in a normal situation, you will not really be able to land this skill at all. So does that mean Druid doesn't work? It does work, but it's basically a very nerfed version that have some quality of life to add some more conditions, might, chill and stuff like that, but it's incredibly nerfed version from the old one. And if you ask me, I would take Ancient Seed over this. Arianet can solve this extremely easily. If they increase the immobilize to 3 seconds at least in this skill, we can invest in condition duration and we'll have enough time to use it to land Natural Conversion exactly as it used to work. And it's a single stack, so it can be removed, no problem. Or at least like you already have changed many classes and gives them the ability to cast skills while moving, even jump while casting, stuff like that. Like Dragon Hunter, Longbow 5, it very much doesn't hold them the place. A very small amount of time. They changed Flurry, if I remember, for the Warrior. Give us at least the ability to move while casting this skill. And the only way right now to make it possible to cast this skill is using something outside of Celestial Avatar to force the enemy to stay inside it. I have tested many things using Spike Trap, however inside Celestial Avatar, so you would cast it and start casting it immediately, but the launch from it will end before this cast time end, so if someone spam dodges, they will still leave. The only thing that really worked was Second of the Wild. However, it doesn't matter what I put here. Using one stump break was very punishing in outnumbered fight, and it just doesn't work. I give up. It doesn't matter how much skill you will have, how skillful you think you are. If you fight classes that really spam a lot of CC, if you fight in warriors, we're back to be afraid of warriors at this point. It just doesn't work. One ball from Dragon Hunter and you use something like that and Reflex to fall into his traps even more, it's just very difficult to do. So there was other choices, is to remove Sharpened Stone. However, it's not worth it. The amount of damage you lose from Sharpened Stone removal It is more than even putting build like that, and you turn yourself into extremely melee style. You would use something like this signet, so you need to get under the feet of your enemy and use it, and then stay next to them and use all your Celestial Avatar skills. You become a very melee class that can't control the enemy's position like we used to because of the roots, so you're even more prone to die very fast. You lose more survivability with this setup. So the best idea is to simply stick with the same build as you are and hope you can burn your enemies slowly until they actually can't escape away from you. You still have some decent damage through Sharpened Stone, you still have good survivability through 2 stun breaks. Entangle, if it lands and you can keep your enemy inside it, it can give you some really good damage. That's why a lot of things would work in Druid, but however Druid is simply feel like it's a nerfed version of what it used to be. I have even tested different bits, tested Jacaranda, and I didn't like her because I lost it has no CC, which means I lost some of my control over the fight. It may be decent in a 1v1, but anything you play is almost decent in a 1v1 if you have enough skill for it. I tested another thing to immobilize, like Paralyzing Venom, but again, the same as Jacaranda, a projectile that can miss, it's not great. The only thing I found a little bit decent was this dog, but long cast time on this skill, even so it's 5 targets, 600 radius, and still have a CC, but long cast time and it's easy to die, it's very weak. So I ended up keeping everything as it is. Iboga and Entangle are our main way to keep the enemy near to us and make sure they eat the full damage of Natural Conversion. So before you end the cast, like in the second balls or whatever, before the last cast, you would ball the enemy near you and they will eat it. They will be here, get balled, CC'd, and get 1 second of immobilize. They can't dodge and they will eat the full damage. The second idea is to entangle them, and since they can't break from it, even you can daze them or something, enter Celestial Avatar and start casting Natural Conversion immediately to also hold them down. Those are the main 2 ways that you can use. However, you can also, if you want, or if you're running with other people that can help you, run Signet of the Wild to put it under the enemy's feet, and it will give you 4 stacks of Immobilize, which mean will trigger Blood Moon 4 times, and even the Immobilize happen with the initial cast, so there is no way out unless they cleanse it, and they will eat the full damage of Natural Conversion, and you can cast it inside or outside of Celestial Avatar. So many things that work, but nothing would really work to the glory of the normal Druid. A single change in Aranit will make Druid enjoyable again and good. There is no other class that need outsources like pet or utility or elite skill to simply use its mechanical form, or it doesn't really function. A Reaper will stun you from skill 5 and will charge you with skill 2, will spin on you skill 4. It doesn't need a utility. If it use elite skill like Chill to the Bone, it will make it easier for himself, but he doesn't need it. He can already use his skill and lock you down easily. A Photon 4 for Holosmith can do that. Why we Druid have to use an outside source for it? And it was never really meant to work this way. It was supposed to the enemies that save themselves from it. But since you removed Ancient Seed, you need to fix it. I feel like this was a bit rushed. Not even the icons have it changed. It's just a rework, and they threw it right there to prepare for the new weapon style, to unlock new builds and efficiency to Druid in PvP and in Zerging Forward Versa World. And in a way, having the Celestial Avatar putting some condition and might to begin with is quite decent if you're talking about Zerg play. And something like Signet of the Wild will give a Dagger Druid in PvP after the expansion release a very good chance. But however, for rumors, solo rumors especially, this is very punishing. Glyph Equality is still a great stun break, but it dazes and you can't keep your enemy stuck. They are simply dazed and you would have to kite away. The build work, so many builds for Druid work right now. I still think this is probably the best form. When you can count on survivability, you can control the distance you at least move from, and with maybe having some chills and extra days and immobilize from here, there's some advantage to actually control your enemy's position a little, like using Lunar Impact to simply immobilize them is still something on the table. However, I really hope Aranit would look into this and make us at least, the only thing we'd ask for, at least to move while casting Natural Conversion. People would still be able to dodge, would still be able to block. There's so many ways to defend themselves, but it would be fair. So with that out of the way, my build is exactly the same. I have tested Celestial Gear, I have tested different sigils, different rooms, I've tested the Trapper build, and everything has its own problem. My build is still exactly the same, with Trailblazer as my armor, short bow, and back item, and my trinkets are Apothecary and also my staff, with energy and cleansing for condition removal and dodges. So every time I would simply switch to the staff, I cleanse 3 condition with the rune of antitoxin, that's 4, and get a dodge. I can simply dodge and leave immediately and start healing myself, securing myself. And on the short bow, I still use Doom and Geomancy. You could change Doom for Hydromancy to be a little bit annoying and force enemy away from you. I tried it, but I still prefer the damage. Like I said, the damage have quite the problem already, but it's up to you what you want to do. But I would keep at least Geomancy. Also with sigils that will trigger an attack damage on a weapon swipe, be careful that it could reveal you if you stayed more than 9 seconds inside Celestial Avatar. So that's something to keep in mind. And like I said, I still use Rune of Antitoxin. It gives condition damage and 25% decrease to the duration of condition applied to us, and will give us a cleanse of extra condition on every condition that we remove. So if we remove 10, on every cleanse that we do. So if we remove 10, it's 11. If we remove 1, it's 2. Which work very well with our choice of healing. Healing Spring, 24-second cooldown, basic, you don't need a trait for it. That will keep balls and cleanses to you on allies and everything inside it, which means it can help keep your bit alive. It's a water field, you can blast Staff 3 or Celestial Avatar 3 in it for more healing. And with Antitoxin, that means it's 3 condition cleansed every time. And something like Lightning Reflexes, which will cleanse Immobilize first and then cleanse 2 conditions from the traits, which means every cleanse of those can trigger Antitoxin up to 5 condition cleansed from this skill alone. And other skills are all survival, which will function the same. Instead of 2 will be 3. And even inside Celestial Avatar, we get Seed of Life to cleanse 3 instead of 2. And if we blast in it, that also will be 2 instead of 1 from the blast finisher itself. So we have some really decent defense and survivability against condition. And against power, we still have Hunker Down to stop projectiles and give us protection. We have protection on dodge, we have a lot of healing, and since we are Trailblazer, we have a lot of toughness. And we need it. We are droids, we only take damage and heal, so you need this toughness. And like I said, Celestial Gear is still very bad with this build. I made a dedicated video on it to explain why. It will work, many things work with droid right now, but you get power, precision, frosty, and you don't need them, while you lose on damage, toughness, and healing. So don't go Celestial. Now for my traits, it is a standard skirmishing survival. I still go with the trap since I don't have critical and this damage is very trivial. I don't need the vigor, I already have a lot of vigor from Lightning Reflexes, and the extra regeneration duration from the healing trap is great. And we use Hidden Barbs for 33% increase for our bleeding damage, and Light on Your Feet because we still on short bow and we need to pierce and be sure to secure our damage. It lowers the cooldown of our skills, it gives us effect Light on Your Feet every time we use skill 3 or dodge to increase our damage and condition duration by 10%. Better damage if we are flanking, and 10% 10 stacks of vulnerability on skill 5. And we are piercing, so you can't get blocked by a Mesmer clones or anything, you make sure your damage will land. And the minors giving us Tailwind, which already 100% swiftness, since Celestial Avatar count as a weapon swipe. So inside combat, if you go inside Celestial Avatar, if you leave to the other weapon, if you go to staff, if you go to short bow, every movement you do from this on a 9-second cooldown will trigger this trait. So it will always happen off cooldown, which means 100% swiftness. Also skill 3 will give you swiftness, which means you have 2 sources, so if it get removed or corrupted, you still have the other. And even if you don't have them, you still have some decent mobility through some breaking, staff, super speeds that you can get from Celestial Shadows on leaving Celestial Avatar, until you can get your swiftness back again. So there is never a problem with movement. And the other 2 skills are Fury, critical damage, and critical chance was irrelevant to us. And for wellness survival, it's all about dodges, 25% increased dodge regeneration, or regeneration to our endurance. And every time we dodge in combat, we give ourselves and our bit 2 seconds of protection, and we are healed for any protection on us per interval. Us and our bit, which is very good even to fill Celestial Avatar. We have Child of Earth as our choice. It's a survival skill, which means it will cleanse 2 conditions with antitoxins at 3. It will put Immobilize on the initial cast, which means it also will trigger Blood Moon, so it's a good thing for damage. And cover condition because it will be bolting slow and cripple. It's very good defensively. And you can also use it while kiting, so a simple heal like that and people get immobilized or crippled if they are following you, so it's still a very good option. There's nothing close to it in this line. And we use Shared Anguish because the stability on bit swipe is very strong and can secure finishes and be used in many clever ways. And lastly, Wilderness Knowledge for the cleansing from all survivor skills, Child of Earth, Lightning Reflexes, Sharpened Stone, and our Elite Entangle. For the Druid itself, you get access to Celestia Avatar, and you can fill this blue bar that will give you access to the mechanics through power damage, healing to yourself or other. Also, it will refill by itself from trait Nature Mender, 8 energy every 3 seconds for a total of 100. And you give yourself healing every time you heal an ally, whose healing to allies are increased, and your bit count as an ally. Our choices are Blood Moon, you cannot play without it anymore, and Celestial Shadows. Every time you leave Celestial Avatar, you will give yourself stealth and super speed to everyone around you, and every time you enter Celestial Avatar, you give daze to the enemy around you. So like that. This blast is daze, and you leave stealth and super speed from those 2 traits. And the last one is Eclipse. Now let's talk about some few tips about Eclipse. So Eclipse put a condition on every skill inside Celestial Avatar. The first one actually got changed. It's an increased radius. It's very reliable for healing right now if you're trying to heal a group or something, and this is the only thing left. Obviously it's not a priority comparing to any other skill, but it is decent and can be used great. And it will put vulnerability. The second skill will give you poison and blinding. Heal, and it's a light field, and cleanse 2 condition. For use it's 3 because of antitoxin, and you can blast in it for even more cleanse. Lunar Impact is a big heal with immobilization and daze, which means it will trigger Blood Moon 2 times right now, and it is a blast finisher. The fourth skill is a water field that pulls 5 times, which means 5 stacks of might to every ally, including yourself, with heal, and 5 times chill to your enemies. The last skill is 3 pulses for damage and a final pulse of the final damage, which is much bigger, and it will give 4 stacks of might to allies, and only in the initial movement or the initial pulse will give you 2 stacks of stability, and will keep pulse to the enemy burn, slow, and cripple for every pulse until the final one will do a bigger damage of burning and will trigger the effect Black Hole that will keep immobilizing for 4 times to everyone who is still inside the radius. Those skills does not have a strike damage tied to them, except the last one obviously, which means they do not reveal you if you are stealthed. However, if your enemy have ages, they will work like damage, so it will not apply the chill for this hit, or it will not apply the blind or poison, but it will remove the ages, which is quite decent. And Seed of Life will always land if it's inside or under your feet, because the cleansing happened before the condition it applies. So if you have blinding, it will remove the blinding and then apply its own. So those are few things to keep attention to. How do I use Celestial Avatar right now? It's depending on the situation. It doesn't have a fixed rotation. So if I need to cleanse, obviously my priority is a skill 2 and combo with skill 3. So it would be something like that. The normal cleanse, blast in it and cleanse immediately. If I need to do damage, if I already locked someone with entangle for example and dazed them or whatever, interrupted them, so I would go to skill 5 immediately and try to really lock them in. So a CC chain would look something like that. Let's say I was on Turtle, so I would switch to Iboga for example, or I was in Iboga and still have my CC. So I would go for entangle. Let's say I landed, I could daze them and or enter Celestial Avatar, since it already will give me daze. So it will look something like that. Let's say I will use Celestial Avatar. I use the entangle and the enemy can't get out of it, so I daze them and start casting skill 5. I see they are about to move, I would bowl them with this skill. And you could combo skill 2 inside that, so the enemy can't hit you after the daze end because they are blinded. And that's something I usually do. So I would cast a skill 5 and immediately go to skill 2 at the same time with it. You will see me do that a lot. But like I said, it's about the situation. What do you need to do? You could start with skill 3 if you're trying to lock enemy from far and you want to immobilize them, for example. If you're especially in group versus group fights. So it's really adaptive. If you want a cleanse, use the cleanse combo from skill 3 inside 2. If you're locking your enemy and already trying to apply the damage of natural conversion, start with natural conversion and use skill 2 to blind them and cover them with more condition with the poison, and you can CC chain them After the days that land from entrance SC avatar, you can bowl with Iboga, and after that ended, you can still cast the skill 3. If the immobilize landed from this, then it will still land from this, and days, so it mimicking a stun. They are immobilized, so they can't move or dodge, but can use their skill. But now they are dazed, and daze prevents them from using skill but not moving. Combine the two, it's a stun. Or at least work exactly like it. And you leave CC avatar and you can use Skill of Equality, you can CC them again with concussion shot, so you keep really ramping up your damage on them. You can even heal under them for another stack of bleed, immobilize, and balls and cripple and slow. So you can really build up your damage like this. So is Druid still work? Druid still work, still fun. It still will be my main build. I have tried many things and I have played it for a long time, actually a few days at least, or especially with this skill. But one stun break was just so criminal, it doesn't really function. I don't like it. Survivability took an insane hit. So the only suggestion I have is to at least make us move with skill 5, but for right now I will be using the build as it is. I will not change anything. I have tried all ideas you could probably think of, and eventually I came back to the same build as it is. I still use my turtle to defense, I still use Iboga to my CC control, and I still use all my same skills. If there is other form I would suggest for you to do, yes, you could simply use the skill and increase the damage and increase the potential of landing skill 5, especially if you have other people helping you. You can actually afford to playing it with quick draw and even changing sharpened stone to another skill, stun break, like Glyph Equality for example, and you play full melee. It's kinda similar to a trapper build because you are very melee and putting things on your enemy. But like I said, I will be playing it exactly the same. Now for the hybrid build. So the hybrid build is the only real difference in the traits. I go with quick draw, obviously, because we are using longbow, so I do not need shortbow anymore, which gives some really decent survivability on this build. You can run the trap or you can run sharpened edges. It kinda, this thing is up to you. You have critical chances, so it's really a choice up to you. But we are running Celestial, so the increase to regeneration duration will be very big. However, this build used to also have Glyph Equality like this. Can you run it like this? Of course. And again, you can run it with Signet. And I've been running it with Signet a lot to also help around zergs and big groups to immobilize people and apply my damage. I leave it behind me. And with access to twice using staff because of quick draw. So you can simply be hitting your target and you want to kite. So you go to staff and you switch bit at the last time and you have 1 second at the end of the animation cast. And you can use the same thing with skill 5 here for only 8 seconds of cooldown to projectile defense. You can use it to on skill 5 to destroy siege or hit off walls, even skill 2 here for the CC, everything you want. And it's very good when you run it like this for damage because of Signet of the Wild, but it is really up to you what you want to run, Glyph Equality or Signet of the Wild. The build also suffers from the fact that it have only one stun break, but I think I might run this build always like this. It fulfills the role I need from it, fighting around walls and keeps or with zergs, so I might actually keep this build with the Signet. And other than that, my gear is full Celestial on this one. It's really strong with Celestial, because you want the power, the precision, everything. You use power weapons and you use a condition build. So we're using Celestial gear. I changed it to anti-toxin and I use condition infusions to increase my damage as much as possible because Celestial is a bit low on condition damage. And my staff, I keep energy and cleansing with the same style of survivability, and on my longbow I use celerity and strength. Strength because this might, up to 10 stacks of might will support both our power damage and condition damage, and we are hyper build, so might is very good to us. And celerity, the quickness is very helpful with the long cast time for longbow skills, and if we really keep it like this, the quickness will also very decent to cast something like natural conversion fast. Because as long as you started on the longbow, the days that happen on a 20-second cooldown, like from Lunar Impact, will trigger the quickness. And even if you run Glyph of Equality, it will also trigger the quickness or the knockback, as long as you did it on the longbow itself. It have a 20-second cooldown and give you 5 seconds of stability, but because of our boon duration, those 5 seconds is a little more than 7 seconds actually. And again, I use the same bits, Iboga and turtle. My food is still the same for both builds. All my condition builds are Mango Pie and Corsair Tuning Crystal for extra condition damage and extra expertise, condition duration, and the healing over time. Each second, if your health is not full, you will be healing for 85. In 10 seconds, it's 850, and the longer the fight go, it's very, very helpful. And also it helps you fill the avatar even faster, so it's a great choice to use. So I will be adding the links in the description, but remember, like I said, you have the option to change skills if you want, but I will be keeping it the same way. This is basically have a quality of life to keep adding damage, whatever you use from distance, from your stuns. It just tie more damage using blood moons and eclipse, but it is way less survivability, less way control, and can be fixed with a single change. So share the video, like, subscribe, tell me your thoughts or anything you want in the comments, or anything you think I missed or you want me to explain, and let's hope ArenaNet listen into this one, and I will be seeing you next time. Peace.